The country's newly confirmed Attorney General is signaling there will be very little daylight between the Justice Department and President Trump. Todd Blanche, who was confirmed a little more than a week ago, was asked flat out whether the department will act independently from the White House. This is how he answered.
No, I'm not going to pledge that. And no attorney general should ever pledge that. The president, if I were to pledge I will be independent of the White House, what that means is that if President Trump says, I want the Department of Justice to go after every violent criminal in this country, which is what he has said, what you're saying to me is I should say, no, sir, I'm not going to do it. So I will act with integrity. Our prosecutors will act with integrity. We will prosecute without fear or any sort of favor.
With us now is Sarah Kristoff, former federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. And I have to say, he treated that as a false test, right? He was saying that independence from the White House means that I can't prosecute violent criminals. What is the right distinction there in your mind, Sarah?
Yeah, he's just twisting words, right? The Department of Justice has a long history of independence from the White House, and that's critical for the operations and legitimacy of the Department of Justice. They cannot do their job properly if they are involved in politics and instructed by the president and the people working close to him on who or who not to prosecute. And so this lack of independence is hugely important, and really, we should all be worried about that.
And what message does it send? And you've worked in these U.S. attorneys' offices before. What message does this send to the federal attorneys and FBI agents around the country?
So we're in a situation right now where the roles of the Department of Justice, the roles of the FBI and other DOJ law enforcement agencies have been decimated. The career folks who have been there for many years, who have the institutional knowledge, the experience to bring complex prosecutions, are scared or they have left. So we're in a situation where our law enforcement agencies are simply not operating properly because they are scared of retribution from the White House, or they're scared of retribution from the people above them at the DOJ, or they have simply left because they have pursued other opportunities given the circumstances they're working under.
And just very quickly on this front, what is an appropriate level of contact between the White House and the Department of Justice? Because Todd Blanche, again, it's sort of a false choice, because pure independence is not what I think a lot of people are talking about when they say the Justice Department, the Attorney General, should display some independence from the White House.
So the DOJ really needs to make its own decisions about pursuing or not pursuing a prosecution. And Todd Blanche also said, listen, if the president wants to weigh in on a particular prosecution, whether we go after a single individual or a single company, I'm going to listen to that, just as I would listen to that if someone else brought that to my attention. That's just, again, to me, is just not accurate. If I go into Todd Blanche and say, hey, please look at this person, look at this company, he is not going to do that. If the president is saying that, it's a whole different story. And so they're just really, the idea of the Department of Justice is you put in folks who have a lot of experience and capability and incredibly good judgment, and you have to let them do their job independently.
I will say, and we'll play this sound here, Todd Blanche claims the president is not telling him who to prosecute. Listen.
There is this extraordinarily false narrative that the president wakes up in the morning and calls me and says, Todd, go prosecute X or Y. He does not do that. He has never done that. He will never do that. And so if there's something that he wants to do, but he needs to know that there's a challenge or that we can't do it, of course I will tell him.
All right, I don't know if the call in the morning is doing a lot of work there, or the fact that maybe the president pressured Pam Bondi and not him, but the president absolutely put out messages on social media telling Pam Bondi that she should go after James Comey, Letitia James, Adam Schiff. There is something of a record of this, isn't there?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So there is the president doesn't not keep quiet, right? And so we have a record that it contradicts exactly what Mr. Blanche is saying. We have in the judges that dismissed the first Comey indictment, that dismissed the first James indictment, they've cited to this information. They said that the president has been unabashed about talking publicly about these cases, about directing the Department of Justice to bring certain cases. So I just think Todd Blanche is not credible when he's saying that I don't get messaging from the president about who to prosecute. And maybe in social media it may not be a morning call, but it's coming.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't call him on the phone every morning, as Tom Blanche is suggesting there. Sarah Kristoff, thank you so much for your insight on this.
If you go onto the website and the DOJ mission, it says to uphold the rule of law, keep our country safe, and that undervalues the first thing is independence and impartiality. Can you talk about what that means in the last couple of years when there have been these really vicious fights over AGs and their performance?
Okay, so let's zoom out, just think about broadly the Trump administration. I covered the FCC. And last year, the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, was testifying before Congress, and he said the exact same thing that Todd Blanche is saying, that actually I can't commit that this agency will be independent of the White House. And in real time, Audie, the FCC scrubbed the word independent from its website, just as the DOJ has there.
In fact, let's watch and see if there's a line a strike through on that.
And the reason I zoom out for you is because Todd Blanche is probably looking at what Chairman Carr did. He's looking at the Supreme Court upholding Trump's decision to fire 2 Democratic FTC commissioners at the start of his second term. And he's probably saying to himself, what reason is there to try to act independently when clearly the precedent has been set that if you go that route, you're not going to get the favor from the president and his support. So I think that, broadly speaking, it's actually more productive to look at what's the state of the agency independence within this administration than just to look at what's been happening over the past few years of the DOJ, which has been that lack of independence.
It'll come up. And I want to say, no, Trump does not wake up and call the DOJ and say X. He does wake up and tweet and do a lot of truth social posts. For instance, he's obviously criticized the Attorney General about James Comey and Adam Schiff and Letitia James, calling on them to be prosecuted. And he's also, of course, gone after Jeanine Pirro for what he felt like poor performance coming to the Reflecting Pool vandalism case, which fell apart spectacularly when they dismissed it themselves. To Sarah's point, Fox News was asking Blanche, hey, already you guys have some new guidance that says you can shield all the communication that Trump has because it's executive privilege. And here's how he responded.
We have to let a president feel like he can have frank conversations with individuals and get honest feedback about running this country without the risk of it being used by him and others, like what you just heard, in a way that's inappropriate. And so this wasn't any novel legal concept. This wasn't us pushing the law beyond where it already was.
Side of the table, what are you hearing?
The idea that the DOJ is independent is a norm. It is not part of the legal structure. And frankly, it isn't part of the lived experience of most Americans alive today, right? I'm old enough to remember Eric Holder saying that he was President Obama's wingman, right? The real issue for critics of Blanche is that the official policy of this administration is the unitary theory of the executive, and the Supreme Court upholds that, right? The Supreme Court has made pretty...
The executive has a lot more power than you all are used to, and it means it's in charge of all the things under the executive.
Correct.
The idea that there are these semi-independent kind of agencies is something they're trying to draw back on. You already look uncomfortable.
But I mean, this is what we mean when we talk about weaponizing the judiciary and weaponizing the rule of law in this country. The president should not be even having any thoughts about directing the attorney general to use his or her powers
So if it's a
to
norm, you
prosecute
like that norm.
Americans. It's not just a norm, it's also in DOJ internal guidance. It's historic, it's post-Watergate reforms, because the idea that we'd have a president telling the Attorney General to be his or her personal lawyer means that we undermine the rule of law in this country. That's why the Attorney General is not the Secretary of Justice. It's the Attorney General. It's different.
What's the response to the voter who says, I actually thought through my taxes, et cetera, this was the top cop for me, not the top cop for the White House?
Frankly, inflation is the issue that put Trump in the White House, and it's the issue that is dragging down his polling, right? Affordability, inflation, I think
But you don't think they look at this and see a kind of corruption with the deal about weaponization fund and
Donald
IRS?
Trump's been the main character of American politics for 11 years now.
Okay.
I don't think, I think this is kind of the same old criticism. And obviously we all see, you know, if we're in the weeds of this every single day. We see the language changing on the website, and I do care about the norm, right? In a perfect world, I wish the Biden DOJ did not slow walk the investigation into Hunter. I wish you did not have Eric Cantor acting as President Obama's wingman.
These are the same thing?
I think it's all slow rolling into the same precedent that I believe is negative. I don't think it's great. Not great, Bob, but I don't think this is what voters think about.
I think it's fair to debate those points, but at the end of the day, the American people look at a Justice Department and Attorney General and expect that individual to uphold the rule of law, not the whims of the president, and that's not the message that Blanche is giving.